Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. Welcome to today's Grain Market Blast. It is Wednesday, the 23rd of April, and as usual, the wonderful, the magnificent, the marvelous Angie Setcher will be giving us a rapid roundup of the latest pricing flows and market moving news in agricultural markets. But before she does, I will get the legals out of the way because otherwise I'll end up in the slammer. So as usual, nothing discussed on this spaces session constitutes trading or investment advice, or indeed infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ or myself, Ryan Paisley, or indeed Angie Setzer. And just for the record, I'm an attractive young man. I'd be passed around the prison. I'd be passed around like rechargeable batteries.
Attractive and small, right? He's a small
Yeah,
guy.
exactly. I fit in the palm of their hands. That's the
He
problem. But
would be
anyway, we digress. We digress.
transportable. Oh man,
Oh
not
God.
me. That's if they were to find me, if I were to anyone were to ever attempt to kidnap me, I would just lay down. And unless you brought a fork truck with you, you are not getting me anywhere. So
Oh, lies,
that'll
lies,
be
lies.
good. But happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Thunderdome, or the third day of the hostage situation. We'll call it that. Lots to talk about. We were just complaining yesterday about a lack of developments, noise, but no real right
Oh, how we
news.
jinxed that.
Yeah, we did. Because pretty much everything yesterday was like, oh, you want developments? Here's all of the developments at once. And so I'll try to be brief and concise, but those are two things that have never been used to describe me in conversation ever. And so first things first, right? We have President Trump on China. And so early in the afternoon yesterday, we had some reports start to circulate. The Treasury Secretary Bessent had told a closed-door meeting with his friends from JP Morgan, which anytime JP Morgan says something, I think you have to listen. Like they're on the
Yeah.
inside, you guys, like in the nicest way. Like they were involved in the Russian, transactions. Like no one really was able to do anyway. JP Morgan, anytime JP Morgan's involved, just listen. But there was a closed door meeting yesterday that was hosted by JPM, and basically Besant told the entire group that like, hey, this is unsustainable by both sides, which is something you and I have talked about a bunch. Like, I would rather see
Yep.
it jack that crap up to 1,000%. Let's get this solved ASAP.
Yeah, exactly.
Make it.
I want to hear it creaking.
Yes.
When it creaks, that's when we know we're going to get
Yeah,
some
like
action.
you just can't ignore it, right? It's an infected wound at this point in time, and so basically, Besant is like, hey, you know. Sorry, phone call. It's spelling of almonds. We're going to see, we have to see a de-escalation here. Like this isn't just going
Yeah.
to continue the way that it is. Like we have to kind of just expect it soon. It's coming. Around the same time, whether it's related or not, news broke, later in the day prior that Trump had a meeting with a group of CEOs, including the head of Walmart, Target, Home Depot, and they'd all said, bro, with all due respect, you are disrupting supply chains. You're giving the economy COVID without a disease, really. Like we don't know what's going to happen with flow. It's going to result in higher prices due to the uncertainty. And we're going to have empty shelves soon. And so if you
Yeah.
don't think that empty shelves won't freak Americans out, like we love our consumerism. And as soon as we aren't able to have it, oof, even if I don't want to buy it, I want to be able to. Right. So,
Yes.
and so that's one of the things that they
I
said,
want the
whether
options, man. I want the
yes,
options.
yes, I want my GI Joe with the kung fu grip. Gosh darn it! But so whether directly related or not, we're going to say it's not, just for the art of the deal. A
Yeah.
softer stance was taken by Trump late in the day yesterday. When asked about China, he was kind of like, either they'll make a deal or I'll just make one for them. Like either you'll
Yeah.
eat what I feed you or I'm gonna get you PB&J. I don't know if you grew up in that kind of house. I
Yeah.
did.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can
No,
have
absolutely.
you get
Yeah.
the PB&J sandwich. So basically the PB&J in this instance is not going to be 145% tariff rate, right? That's currently in place. Trump said it'll be much lower than that if he decides, and that China would be happy with it. He's not going to take a hardline stance. Like just basically, we're going to come up with something. Whether they want to participate or not, I'm going to come up with something. It's going to be a great win for everybody. It's going to be super cool. And so basically China responded overnight saying like, hey, that's not the right way to deal with us. Like, I don't want PB&J. I am happy with the meatloaf. I just don't know if I want the green beans or if I want mashed potatoes. You know what I mean? Like, they're just
Yeah.
basically doors wide open for trade talks. A deal can't be reached by exerting extreme pressure. Like, come to us, name your point person, yada, yada, yada. It is of interest, of course, that Xi's been also, traveling around the world, or at least Southeast Asia, shaking hands, kissing babies. Not the opposite, because that's dangerous. But, one of those things where he's traveling around kind of indicating, hey, you guys don't want to participate. Like, you need to choose between the two of us. And if you choose them and not us, it's not going to be great for you. Meanwhile, the US is saying the same. And so everyone's just like, can't mom and dad just kiss and make up? I don't want two Christmases anymore. So obviously, we're going to be trying to pay attention to who's going to be named as the point person. I said this morning, plot twist, it's Trump. Like he's going to be the one that's like, I'm
Right.
in charge,
I think
like,
well, the thing is that, and you rightly say that because we joke, but we did say what that 90-day pause or the 90-day
yes,
relief. We kind of like it got leaked on the weekend, and everyone's like, oh, well, well, maybe it's not true, but it was true. It's just
yes.
it's the fact that Lutnick or Bezant or whoever it was that said it, and Trump was like, no, no, I don't like that idea. I'll wait for 3 days, and then I'm going to say it's my idea.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And I mean, all of us have had a boss like that, have we not? Maybe I'm speaking for myself in this, where it's like it has to be his idea. And it's okay. Once you get that way, you're fine. But so we'll be paying attention to that. Obviously, who's named as the point person, great big importance. Whether we see any further talks will be cool. I think Trump just really wants G to call him. Like it's kind of anyway. And so then next thing, next thing next, of course, we've got the Russia Ukraine peace talks, or lack thereof, potentially. Middle of the night last night when I was waking up and you were having your first cup of coffee, we saw that Rubio and Witkoff, or maybe this happened before then, but anyway, they're not going today to attend the peace talks in London. Everyone had expected Rubio, the Secretary of State, Witkoff, who is apparently just super important to the whole entire world when it comes to peace at this point, because he's the special envoy to the Middle East, but he's somehow been really important in the Black Sea. But they said they aren't going to attend peace talks today. It's going to be the UK, France, the US, and London. Keith Kellogg's going to attend. He's the
Yeah,
special envoy to the Ukraine, but he's only the only administration member in attendance. Why this is important is like basically, according to reports, last week the US presented Ukraine with their final peace proposal, is what they're saying. Like we'd seen Trump, Rubio, and others be like, yo, if this doesn't get done in the next few days, I'm done with it. I'm bored with it. It's not going to happen. Whatever. Do your thing. I don't care anymore. And so basically, like last Thursday, they had presented this peace plan. According to reports in the peace plan that was rejected by Ukraine yesterday, it basically called for that immediate ceasefire. The front lines would be freezed as they stood. Ukraine would have to recognize Crimea as Russian territories and also give up, wanting to join NATO. It'd be off the table. Joining NATO would be, joining the EU would be allowed, according to what the reports indicate. They would also give up control of our favorite nuclear plant, but that would go to the US. Basically, like Ukraine would continue to own it, but the US would control it and share its electricity with both Russia and Ukraine. Russia, for their part, would have such major, concessions as getting Crimea and all of the territory that they've captured so far, as well as getting all of their sanctions rolled back that have been put in place since 2014. And also, the deal said to include deeper energy and economic cooperation between them and the US. So, I mean, they're giving up a lot. A robust security guarantee for Ukraine was said to be part of the deal, though how, all of that would play out is unclear because obviously Russia has said that we don't want troops, we don't want EU troops, we don't want, anything like that in Ukraine. And so obviously, like Rubio had stated previously, like, hey, if they don't accept the terms of this deal, if Ukraine, basically it was the thought Ukraine accepts it, we'll present it to Russia. Of course, they're going to accept it, and we'll move
yeah,
on. And so
yeah,
Ukraine did not. And so now it's basically one of those things where is the US going to pull out? What does the US do now? What does it mean if we aren't pursuing peace, if we've given up on these talks or whatever, and maybe we haven't, maybe that's just bluster, but what does it all mean?
yeah,
And realistically speaking, if the U.S. pulls out, obviously Russia, especially if they know that in the long run, the freezing of the front lines is going to be the only way that we see peace. Like they're not going to agree unless that's
yeah,
part of it.
yeah, yeah.
And so basically overnight, Russia launched another massive attack on an important piece of energy infrastructure in the Kherson Oblast, destroying it, knocking out power. So there goes your energy ceasefire, even though it never really happened that we could speak of. I had to take a drink there. I was going to start coughing if I didn't. So, last things last. I don't know, anything you want to add there since they are in
No,
London? I
no, no,
mean,
no. No, no, you've covered it all.
All right. So, last things last, cash grain update, just kind of paying attention to what's going on in the world because, right, the things in grain that matter, you have your natural buyers and your natural sellers. That's where I kind of participate in the market
Yeah,
structure. And that's what really drives the market as a whole. Like your speculators can participate or whatever, but, cash is king. And so basically just kind of paying attention around the world of what's going on, according to the Friars Report, which is awesome group. If you haven't been paying attention to them, Black Silo on Twitter. It's Rory, my friend Rory. There, he is an expert Black Sea and EU wheat and grain in general. But he has so many folks that he works with across the entire, northern hemisphere and world in general. And they threw out a survey kind of asking, how much trade have you done compared to normal? And a lot of the responses he got, basically, less than half of the normal book is on for a lot of these traders. Like you just basically have a lack of interest, you have a lack of major weather problems, you have plenty of old crop supplies that are of good quality, and so no one's in a huge hurry. They don't care. Just show me, what the bid will be the end of July when the farmers are selling, and maybe I'll buy then. One thing I'll say is that the improvement in grain trading in general, the knowledge of using options and a lot of these things has provided a lot of end users the ability to kind of sit back on the cash side. And so that's part of it. But until we see actual activity take place to where we know what is truly trading in a lot of these places, we're just kind of stuck.
yeah,
Until you see an end user that's triggered into buying, here we sit, really, unless the speculator decides to buy. But the speculator is not likely to buy until they hear something that's happening in cash or they see some sort of weather issue. And that's probably going to trigger the end user before it triggers the speculator. So that's where we're
yeah,
sitting in wheat. Corn traders continue to source U.S. supplies, but we are seeing an increase in Brazil availability with first half July coming into play. Brazil's crop does look like it'll be large. We had a really dry start. We had upwards of 40 some percent of the area dealing with, much drier than normal conditions. But since then, the rain has turned on and they look like they're going to have probably a bigger crop than a year ago. May have upwards of 5 million metric ton, a couple hundred million bushels of additional supplies to put into the global pipeline next year. Of course, that's not going to come into play until August or so. But with corn harvest in Argentina getting over just a third done, and the idea that you'll see an increase in farmer selling there ahead of the removal of the export tax,
right.
then we're seeing a slowdown in corn trade as well. Domestically speaking, traders are concerned or confused by what the hell's going on. Spreads aren't necessarily indicating we're as tight as what the USDA is saying, though last year they indicated we were tighter than what the USDA was saying. Farmer selling has a huge influence on this, but it's one of those things that we're paying attention to. Why is the spread wide? It should be a lot tighter than what it is. Those types of things. That's kind of this morning. Traders on the sidelines, and so it'll be something that we're watching. On the soybean side of things, we're waiting for any sort of sign of biodiesel. Crush margins are kind of, but there's not a lot of grain moving. One of the things that we're seeing is logistical capacity out of Brazil is basically tied up for the next couple of months. China is taking a bunch of beans. It is not trade war related. They were on the books. They
I
were
did see your
on
post.
the
I did see
books.
your post earlier on about that.
Oh golly, I have random pet peeves, but that is one of them right now. It is not trade war related. It is not at all. Those were on the books. It's economically driven. All of these things, But basically, Brazil's logistical capacity tapped out. That is going to push more buyers to the U.S. in the short term for additional bean sales. We should be able to meet, if not exceed, the USDA's export figures there, which should surprise people. Everyone last summer was talking about how terrible our export business was, so it's an interesting thing. Lastly, golly, I tried to make this quick, but President Trump did walk back his Trump tax on Fed Chair Jerome Powell.
Yeah,
He said he has no intention of firing him. Like, where do people even get these stupid
yeah,
ideas?
exactly.
Like, what on earth would point you in that
Who
direction?
started that rumor?
This just did. I call all of my best and brightest total losers. Like, I don't understand why that's confusing to any of you at this point. But he did say that yesterday, which is it's good. Like, we already have so many things that have shaken confidence. That's one of those things that you just kind of self-inflicted sort of deal. So
Yeah,
looking ahead, we'll get
exactly.
some energy info. We want to see what ethanol production looks like. Definitely just looking for more clearance of supplies into the export market, and indications of gasoline demand, yada, yada, yada. And that's about it. So we're waiting. We're 2 seconds from the
Wonderful.
open. Yeah. And corn's down, wheat's down, beans are up. There you go. Happy
There you
Wednesday.
go. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. We're nearly there.
Right?
We're nearly there.
Oh
Um,
my gosh. I tried to make it quick. There's just, like we said yesterday, there's so many things. Like, we're waiting for these headlines. And then, of course, last night, it's all just like all hell breaks loose. Here you go,
yeah,
Ange. Have some
exactly that.
details.
Exactly that. Exactly that. Well, Angie, thank you so much for being your awesome self. Listeners, thank you as always for tuning in. And for those of you that replay this because you haven't called it live, welcome from the past. Uh,
Right?
oh, I'm going insane. Right. I need some
It's
more
okay.
coffee.
I feel that. I was just going to
Right.
say that I act normal online, but I walk around the house making weird random noises all the
Yeah,
time. Like, just in
it's
case
almost
you
like
wondered.
you know exactly what I've been doing today. But anyway,
Right.
listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you all tomorrow, where myself and Angie are going to probably be more insane than today.
Exactly. It's a progression. You got to love it. So, you guys have a good one.
Have a good one. Bye bye.